All right, so the one that I chose for my stats final project is actually a topic that I really like to talk about in the first place, and that is the NBA. And the one that really caught my eye was Luka Doncic and the Mavericks. This is the 2020 Mavericks, the bubble Mavericks. Um, and this is on pushing the limits of offensive efficiency. So the overview of this article is the 2020 Mavericks led the NBA in efficiency with a staggering 116.8 points per 100 possessions, which is actually 6.4 points better than the league's average. And that's actually 30th in NBA history. And that's all thanks to second year guard Luka Doncic. And he gets a lot of that credit because his 3-point percentage, 31.5. And not only that, but his assist numbers are very high as well, as he's dishing out 45.6% of baskets to his teammates. Per 100 possessions, Luka Doncic is also supplying the Mavericks with 115.9 points, which is insane for a single player to accomplish. Especially, he's only 20 years old as well. But this efficiency doesn't all lie on Doncic's hands. The Mavericks as a team have been 6.4 points per 100 better than the average team. And that is also breaking records in NBA history. Going back to 1976, no team in modern history has ever finished a season with this many players logging such regular minutes at high levels of efficiency. And this is according to Neil Payne, the article that I read. The 2020 Mavericks had 7 players, the best rate in NBA history, with offensive efficiency ratings all over 115. So basically, the Mavericks never had an inefficient player on the court at any time. And it really shows how intelligently this team was built. And as it has a lot of good shooters, good role players built around their one superstar, Luka Doncic, who can shoot it, drive it, pass it. He can do it all. So during my research process, I went on a couple other websites to see like the stats of the 2020 Mavericks because I'm not really familiar with the Mavericks as a whole, as I support the Boston Celtics. But searching on a couple websites, I found out that the 2020 Mavericks offensive efficiency in 2020 was 116.8 per 100 possessions, like as I said in the last slide. And Luka Doncic was actually plus 7.7 more points than an average player for every 100 possessions his team plays. So he really gave that boost to his team that they needed. 7 players with offensive efficiency higher than 115, which is the best mark in NBA history. The second actually came the year before, where a team had 6 players, and that was the Los Angeles Clippers in 2019. These 7 all also had 3-point percentages over 35% and a 2-point percentage over 50%. And for the people that don't know really much about basketball, 50%, like that's taking 2 mid-range shots and making 1 out of 2. And 35%, that's like shooting 1 for 3 on from behind the arc. And a little bit higher than that actually, but data analysis. So when I was looking through the data, ones that I really wanted to point out were the mean offensive ratings, the median points per game, and the standard deviation of field goal percentages. And for the mean offensive rating, that came out to 116.7. And the median points per game, that one was a little bit harder because actually this NBA season, the 2020 season, because of COVID, it did not have the regular 82 game season. In fact, it only had 75 games in that season. So it was a little bit harder. I had to go in every single game, see how many points the Mavericks put up in each one of those games, and then put it in order of, in order of lowest points and the highest points, all in order. And since 75 divided by 2 is 37.5, I had to, split that in the middle, and it came out to 116.5. And the standard deviation, that one was a little bit tough too, but when I plugged it in, got out to be 10.85. And the question that I really wanted to ask, it was, running through my mind a lot. And knowing how good Luka is of a player, he is probably, right now, he's probably top 5 in the NBA. But the question I really wanted to ask was, how does the Mavericks' offensive efficiency compare in games where Luka Doncic plays more than 35 minutes versus games where he plays less than 25 minutes? I really wanted to see the impact that Luka Doncic really had on this team in 2020. And, where like the Mavericks would be like, without him. And so I made this graph, this bar graph here. And the light blue shows Luka when he plays less than 25 minutes, and the darker blue shows when Luka plays more than 35 minutes. And this is the Mavericks offensive efficiency, the points. When the points the offense puts up when Luka plays these amount of minutes. And it really shows, look at that difference right there. It really shows the effect that Luka Doncic has on this 2020 Mavericks team. Going to descriptive stats, the mean offensive rating when Luka Doncic played under 35 minutes was 113.4, and the mean offensive rating when he played over 35 minutes was 119.8, which is, a pretty big difference, in my opinion. And the standard deviation of these offensive ratings were 3.2. Now for the inferential test that had to be done. The question that I asked for that was, is there a significant difference in offensive efficiency between the 2 game duration categories? And where that arrow is pointing, group 1 is when Luka Doncic plays less than 25 minutes, and the one on the right is where Luka Doncic plays over 35 minutes. And the results of that test, the confidence interval for the difference came out 95%. The test statistic T came out to negative 7.815. And the p-value came out to 9.15. If we're rounding to 2. If we're rounding to 3, 1.145. Anyways. Because of this, we reject the null hypothesis because there is significant evidence to conclude the claim of significant difference in offensive efficiency when Luka Doncic plays up to 25 minutes and also when he plays more than 35 minutes. And on the right, we have the graph, the T distribution graph that I made plugging in all of the dots of graph. To conclude this, Luka Doncic really, he was the staple of this offense, and without him, the Mavericks were still good. They have 7 players, with a high offensive efficiency rating, but Luka Doncic really gave them that spark, and we can really see that by the question that I answered. Based on these results, we can determine that Luka Doncic's presence on the court was very much felt by this Mavericks organization. Although some of the games in the 2020 NBA season, he got less than 25 minutes, anytime on the court, he was making his presence known. And we can see the impact through him and his teammates' success during the answering of the question. The Mavericks were really on a roll in 2020, and they continued to play the best basketball Dallas has seen in a decade. And as you can see on the right, that's the scatter plot graph I made. On the left is where Luka plays less than 25 minutes. On the right, where Luka plays more than 35 minutes. And you can really see, first of all, there's more games where he played more than 35 minutes than he did less than 25 minutes. But you can really see the effect that he had on the Mavericks organization there. And for those that are wondering, well, what happened to the Mavericks that season? They must have won a title, right? And the answer is no. Sadly, they did not win the title. They went on. COVID happened, so they had to cut the season short. When they came back, they made it to the postseason as the number 7 seed, and they got eliminated in the first round in 6 games by the Los Angeles Clippers. And that leads me to another question. Maybe next time I'll have to ask, you know, maybe next time though, this will be the next project that I do. And that is, what if COVID never came? Would the Mavericks still have done what they did, or would they have, continued that offensive efficiency and won the NBA championship? Maybe we'll never know, because when COVID came, it really, it threw teams off, and when they came back, the Mavericks were really they really weren't the same after that. But what if the NBA season never got cut off short? Maybe the Mavericks would have kept that offensive efficiency, carried it into the playoffs, and brought them farther than they did before. But anyway, that's just a question I had. Um, Maybe it'll get answered, but most likely we'll never know. Thank you for listening to this presentation, and that's all.